As a fitness professional, you know the joy of helping others, and you know it's more than just fitness. We're training the whole person. Wellness coaching provides expertise that goes beyond fitness and nutrition. It's a holistic approach to helping others become their best selves while reaching their goals. To us, there's no greater joy than that. Join the fitness leader. Become a fitness leader. Become a certified wellness coach. Go to nasm.org/wellness.
Well, hello there, listener, and welcome to this week's episode of the Better Than Fine podcast. I'm your host, wellness coach, and well-being expert, Darlene Marshall. And probably the number one question that I get in consultations with clients, when I teach workshops, when I'm out teaching undergrad, the number one thing that people ask is, I know what to do, but I can't make myself do it. How do I make myself do whatever the thing is? And this comes out in a whole bunch of other ways. It also comes out as like, I really just need some accountability. I also hear people say things like, I really should be blah, 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 fill in the blank here. And so for the sake of today's episode, I want you to set aside the question of whether or not these people actually do know the technical information of what they should, soft quotes, should be doing. So this would be like, is it fad diets? Is it some kind of crazy workout that doesn't actually make any sense? Is it some internet influencer guru person is telling them to do wild stuff, right? Carnivore diet. So if we just set all of that stuff aside and we assume that whoever is asking me these questions actually does know, right? They know they got to eat more vegetables. Are they getting enough protein? They're not having a whole lot of processed foods or like a bunch of takeout, too much alcohol. They know that they should be moving their body about 30 minutes a day, getting some high intensity somewhere in the week, pick up some heavy stuff so that they can do it with good form, shut off the phone and go to sleep, drink some water, right? These are all the things that are just kind of common sense when it comes to our health and our wellness and our well-being. But a lot of people feel like they just can't make themselves do those things. And the internal dialogue of like, I really know that I should be doing this. I should be doing this and I should be doing that. I should go to the gym. I should eat better. I should get off my phone before 2:00 in the morning. They're just shoulding all over themselves. But should and have to are the most dangerous bedfellows for motivation. They are steeped in obligation and shame, in this external accountability that demotivates us in the long run. And in today's episode, I want to look at the deep guts of why should, shame, guilt, obligation, why they are really demotivating, and how we can help ourselves and our clients, because I know there's plenty of coaches and trainers that listen to this show, how we can help ourselves, how we can help our clients move away from that external obligation language, and what can be a lot more helpful in the long run. So let's kick it off by talking about why. Everyone has a human need, a psychological, foundational need to feel that they have some degree of control in their own lives. They have agency. They are able to see the things that they want in their life and make decisions that shape their reality toward the things they want in their life. This is a foundational psychological need according to self-determination theory. And if you doubt that for a second, just consider how much we all kind of hate being told what to do, right? And most of us live lives where we are told what to do by other people all the ding dang time. Think about it. You're at work, your boss telling you what to do. At home, your partner or your parents, depending on how old you are, telling you what to do. If you go to school, your professors are telling you what to do. Heck, the laws tell us what to do, right? My husband will definitely tell you that I am the first one out there with a lead foot. I do not respect speed limits particularly well. Everyone's got a flaw. Maybe that one's mine, or at least one of mine. I certainly have a collection. But essentially, we don't like being told what to do. And when we add to that our own internalized compass of what's right and wrong, right? We internalize these external rules of what we should be doing. We can unintentionally internalize a layer of guilt, of blame, of shame, because we take those outside rules of what we should be doing, and when we weave them in subconsciously to what's called your schema, the idea of how the world works, we're now going to internalize that as like, ooh, I am bad if I break these rules. I rebel against that. You, my dear listener, probably rebel against that. And when we start to chafe against these feelings of being told what to do and the should, it is the opposite of helping when it's the things that ultimately are good for us. And as long as I've been doing this, 13 years I've been in the fitness industry, I've been on my own fitness journey for about 20. As long as I have been at this, I have heard this language of, I really have to. I have to get to the gym. I really should be eating different. But when you read the research on motivation, people who are primed to think about the things that they don't like about themselves and all of the things that they should be doing, right? When we are primed with our poorest behaviors and our worst ways of thinking about ourselves and our actions, we're less consistent with our fitness, with our nutrition, with our sleep. But what do we say? Oh God, I really should shut off this phone and go to bed, right? And even when we do the thing that we so desperately say we have to do, the research shows us that the people who do eventually give in to the shoulds, even if they get the results that they want, they are less happy with the outcome and they are less consistent after they get to their goal. So think about this. If you are a personal trainer listening to this show, what's the first thing that you're taught to do during your consultation? Because I know what I was taught to do during my consultations. I was taught that you look as you're going through the information with these people to find the thing, the reason what this person is doing wrong, so that you can put it up front and center. Here's all the stuff you're doing wrong. Here's your knowledge gaps. This is what you should be doing that you're not doing, and that's why you should hire me. Right? From the bat, as a personal trainer, I was taught highlight and exploit the negative, because that's how you get people to sign up. But in the long run, I now know from reading this research that it's actually the least motivating. Now, let me tell you a quick story. I even had one client. They had been in the military. And when they began in the military, they had a female drill sergeant. So the first thing that they told me was, I want you to be mean to me. Treat me like a cadet. It's the only thing I'll listen to. Now, this person worked with me for well over a year. They became a really good friend. We actually had a really great time working together. But I was pretty early in my career. And so I didn't really understand that setting up that dynamic actually meant that they were only going to be motivated when I was there being the drill sergeant to them, telling them what to do. And that as soon as that external structure was removed, they were going to go off and do whatever they were going to do. So honestly, they didn't get very good results working with me, because that kind of guilt and shame drill didn't internalize positive change. And so they struggled for years. I'm glad to say that since that time, they did find positive motivation and they have gotten fantastic results. So I was able to get them stronger when they were with me as their trainer, but their other goals languished because they weren't internalizing positive things. They were only doing those positive actions when I was right there in front of them and they felt the threat of punishment. So the good news is now I understand why that doesn't work and we don't do it that way no more. But then the question, of course, becomes, what does work? Well, you're listening to the Better Than Fine podcast. I'm your host, Darlene Marshall. In this episode, we're going to talk about why and how you should stop shoulding on yourself. because should ain't really all that helpful in the long run. So let me give you another really present example in most people's lives. It's not uncommon as a fitness professional that you get hired when somebody gets engaged. They want to look and feel their absolute very best on their wedding day. That is a high motivation, but it is also a very external motivation, right? When we think about these external motivators, when you think about the shoulds, what we're talking about is these external systems of reward and punishment. And so, the speeding example is punishment. The drill sergeant example is punishment. But with wedding, it's a huge reward, right? The payoff of looking and feeling your best on the day that you're going to be the most photographed day of your life for most people is going to be their wedding. But what I have found in 13 years of doing this work is that once that reward is given, once you do the wedding, once you do the work step challenge and you win, yay, motivation falls off. People revert. And in a lot of cases, if it's a weight-related goal, we end up with a rebound. Right? They end up rebounding back to where they started, kind of in the best case outcome. So how do we stop? How do we stop the shoulds? And what can be more effective when we're talking about long-term well-being, which is really what the show is about, right? I do not mean to shame anybody for wanting to look and feel their absolute best on their wedding. That's on you, right? Like, go nuts. I did it for my wedding. But if we're looking at a life of well-being, if well-being is a life goal, and we accept that how we take care of ourselves is going to affect that, well, what's really effective if this other stuff isn't? So if we take that same person, a moment ago, I said that if you prime somebody with the shoulds and the negatives about themselves, right, they're less consistent. And even if they do get results, they're not happy with the outcome. But if you prime that same person to consider what are their deep, true, aligned, positive goals that make them want to take care of themselves, why would they want to change? What's the future projection of whom they might see themselves to be down the line? If you invite someone into that kind of introspection, right, thinking about oneself, they eat better, they move more, they're more consistent, it lasts longer, and they're happier with the result, as long as you anchor those things that they want in the future to the behavior that we're talking about. And I don't know about you, but I think I'd want all of that. But how do we do it? How do we make that happen for ourselves and for the people that we are in service in? I'm going to teach you exactly what I teach in my workshops and to my clients. One of them is a long-term strategy. One of them is an in-the-moment skill. And they both produce this positive outcome of motivation. We're going to start with the long-term strategy. So grab your pen and paper or your crayons. I know we've got some Marines that listen, so shout out to my friends in the Marine Corps, or I know once a Marine, always a Marine. Grab your crayons, my friends. Let's do it. Long-term strategy. Whatever you change, you want to make it, whatever you change, I don't care what it is, when it comes to how you're going to take care of yourself, eating better, moving more, taking your medication properly, bringing down your A1C, bringing down your blood pressure, changing your physical self in some way. It doesn't matter what it is. But this long-term strategy is to tie that behavior change, that positive thing, the thing that you really should be doing, to something you actually do care about. And ideally, it should be something deep, something real and true. So let me give you two examples that have recently come up. Recently, I had a client that was struggling to work out and eat consistently. Again, they knew what they should be doing, but they just weren't doing it. And so we started talking about what actually mattered to them. And what we dug into that was real and true was that someday they thought it was pretty likely they were going to be a grandparent. Now, mind you, their kids aren't even married, but someday they'll probably be a grandparent. And they loved the idea of being a fit grandparent. They wanted to be able to do all of the cool stuff with their grandkids at 70 that they did with their own kids at 40. They needed to understand that who they would become at 70 was going to be decided in their 40s and 50s. And you, my dear listener, if you are not yet in your 70s, what you're able to do physically at 70, that foundation is poured. 40 is even a little bit late, right? Like 30, if we're real being honest, the real. Now, they care enough about that future vision of who they could be when they grow up, the kind of grandparent that they aspire toward being, that they are ready to change now to make that future a possibility. So we took the thing that they really care about, family and remaining high functioning for their family, we anchored that to their movement. Second example, another new client who's working on some real negative internal talk, and some big emotions are coming up along the way. And when we dug into it, we tied that to their own value of family. But for them, it was the idea that their grandparents really loved them, really valued them, and saw the best in them. They were there. Mr. Rogers talked about your special people who love you unconditionally. For them, that was their grandparents. And they knew that their grandparents would want them to have a good life where they were healthy and happy, unconditionally loved, and their best self, even though their grandparents are gone now. And that was enough of an emotional impact to shift their behavior. So it doesn't even have to be something in the future. It's just about, what do you value most? And how do these behaviors relate to those values? Because what we're looking to do is motivate the change from a sense of positive identity, your value system, and the things you actually do care about. Because those are going to be way bigger motivators for positive change than being thin or likes on Instagram or whatever other external approval. Because as soon as those things are gone or they sour, they're gone and the motivation goes with them, period. So it's about getting deep down with yourself. What is it that you actually care about? And how can you anchor the behavior to those things? So the question I actually ask my clients is, at this stage in your life, with what's going on for you at this moment in your life journey, what are the most important things to you? And then we look at, how do these behaviors anchor to those most important things? How do they make you better to show up for what you care about? And here's a little bonus. Whatever you anchor to, whatever you decide the behaviors are, find a way to make the behaviors pleasurable, enjoyable, maybe, dare I say it, even fun. Because the research shows that when you enjoy the change that you're making, you'll do it more. You'll do it more consistently. You'll keep showing up far more than if you do it because somebody told you that you have to, or you should, or prescribed it to you, or whatever. And that's partly because of that agency thing. It's partly because that little bit I gave you on choice, that when you choose, the choice in itself is helpful to continue to motivate you. So you can make it fun by doing it with a friend. You could have some music that you like. You could exercise while you watch your favorite show. It could be cooking with your kids. Anything that you can do to make the action more enjoyable is going to increase the likelihood that you repeat it again down the line. You're listening to the Better Than Fine podcast. I'm your host, Darlene Marshall, and today we are talking about, how do you stop shoulding on yourself? Because all those shoulds ain't doing you any favors. And this brings us to the other tip that I have for you today, the other technique that I use. So the first technique is this long-term strategy. How do I maintain motivation for a long time horizon? The second one is an in-the-moment skill set. So it's not just one thing, it's a few things, if I'm being honest with you. The first being just noticing when you say, oh, I really have to. God, I really should. I really should get off the bread. I have to lose some weight, right? This is like the most demotivating sentence that I hear people say, right? Who wants to live that life? Not I, said the fly. But in the second tip, if you can start to build that skill of just even catching yourself, I have to, I should, I need to, about anything. And when you do, the actual skill here is to replace it with, I'm choosing to because. And then you follow that, you fill in the blank of this Mad Lib with the most authentic, honest answer you possibly could give about why you would ever choose to do the thing we're talking about here. Because saying I have to or I should, you're telling yourself, I must do this. Like there's a gun to your head and it has to happen. 99.9999 cents of the time, of the time, no one is making you do anything. If we're being fully honest, now there will be consequences. There's always consequences when we do or don't do something. You don't go to work, it's still a choice not to go. There's a consequence if you eat junk food. There's a consequence if you just sit around all day. But you don't have to go to work, eat right, get enough sleep. No one is physically forcing you to do those things. They are actually a choice. It's just that those choices will have consequences. You don't have to practice gratitude. You don't have to have good boundaries. But you won't feel as happy or good if you don't. So you choose to, I choose to, because, and then you add the most honest, earnest, authentic thing that you possibly could, especially if it relates to the things that you actually care about. So I choose to eat better because I want to not only meet my grandchildren, but be able to play with them when I'm 70. I choose to move my body because I feel better emotionally. And then I have enough energy to actually do the things that I want to do that make life worth living to me. I choose to meditate every day because I know I'll be able to regulate my emotions better. So when we do that, when we replace this feeling of have to and the lack of agency with choice, you're also getting to really learn what you really care about because of after the because part. And it's so important. I can't stress this enough. When I teach this skill, sometimes I have clients who the because really surprises them, brings up a whole bunch of stuff because they've never really considered, why am I doing the things that I'm doing in my life? Why do I feel like I have to do this stuff? And when they take that moment to really look at the introspection of the because, sometimes it gives them the values of what they actually care about. Sometimes it builds them that long-term motivation train. Now, you might have also heard on social media, there's a very similar technique out there of replace all your shoulds with I get to. I get to work out. I get to eat healthy. I find this to be extraordinarily inauthentic in some cases. So let me give you an example. If you work at a crummy job that you hate, and I tell you, well, but you get to go to work, that is literally trying to teach you to gaslight yourself. So you could say, like, I get to work this crummy job I hate. I get to go exercise even though I don't want to. But it's not real, right? If I tell you to say, I choose to stay in this crummy job because, and you take that moment of introspection, you go, my kids need health insurance, right? That's a whole different set of motivation than trying to just gaslight yourself into believing it. You can tough through some really big challenges if it represents your authentic values and what you find meaningful. That's real. So the trick with affirmations and self-talk, if you're a person that when you do this kind of work, you're like, this stuff is dumb and it doesn't relate to me at all. It doesn't work because it's just make-believe. Well, that's because it's inauthentic. If you don't buy it and you keep trying to push it because somebody told you that it will work and it's not working for you, it's probably because it's empty for you, right? If you don't believe it. And what that actually is doing is driving cognitive dissonance. That's when your internal world and your external world are at odds, or you have some beliefs that are in conflict and they cause you to try to deny the facts of your own reality. And you don't allow yourself to see and to feel what is real. And that can drive some mental health problems in a lot of people. So as practitioners, we do not want to be the seeds of someone's cognitive dissonance, right? Our job is to help them be better. And if we know that that kind of dissonance can affect their mental health, we don't want to be telling our clients to do that. So I strongly encourage you to try, instead of, I get to eat vegetables I don't want, to say, I'm choosing to do this because, and then follow it up with something authentic that helps you to accept what is real and true in your reality. Be honest with yourself about your real motivations, and then you can shape what's next from there, because you're in tune with your current state and who you want to be when you grow up. So what happens when we do this? When we start moving away from the shoulds and we start to recognize our own choices, what I find is that some clients immediately change for their authentic reasons. They click with their authentic responses, they snap in with their value system, and the behavior change dominoes start falling away. Other people see the authenticity, their values are reflected in their behavior and to themselves, sometimes for the first time, and it reveals some deeper challenges in their lives, and they go to therapy. And let me just shout out for any of the coaches who default to scope of practice and refer to clinicians. You are my heroes, because we are in a moment in not only coaching, but also fitness, in the wellness space, where our scope creep is getting massive. And we're getting lots of influencers out there saying that, therapy doesn't work and you should work with us instead. Some of the best allied practitioners in my network are the therapists that I send my clients to when they are struggling with their mental health, because I am not a clinician. And sometimes using these tools does uncover real clinical challenges. That doesn't mean I failed. That means I did my job really well. And let me help you find a trauma therapist, an EMDR practitioner. Over time with these clients, these authentic actions and reactions become woven into themselves, their sense of selves. So instead of internalizing shame and guilt and shoulds and the negatives and they're internalizing a more positive, authentic identity that represents their values. And that unlocks the ability to thrive as someone really, truly is. Which, one, I believe that the world desperately needs unlocked, authentic, thriving people showing up as they truly are, including you, my dear listener, and being really well. And also, I see that as my job. My job is to help people integrate a positive, authentic identity that lets them show up in the world and thrive. And these two things, these two techniques that I have taught you, is something I teach every client how to do. And in my experience, really is the meat and potatoes of well-being when we talk about it from my number one question I get asked: how do I make myself do the stuff that I know I should be doing? And it's, what's the most important thing in your life right now? And why would you choose to do those things so that you can show up better for the things you actually care about, instead of all of the things that we are being told 100 times a day that we should be caring about, instead of what's actually real for you. So put down the phone, pick up the pen, do a little journaling about your values and the things you care about. And then, why would you choose to take better care of yourself? There's your answer. Now, I would love to hear your questions, your concerns, your comments, your feedback. So please email me. It's info@darlene.coach. You can also find me on Instagram. I'm darlene.coach. We've got a Substack, betterthanfine.substack.com, or you can find me on LinkedIn, where I'm now also posting daily well-being resources. So if you're someone that's been working on this stuff for a while and you want some content to support you along the way, shout out to that LinkedIn feed. Follow me, if you're a fan of the show, I hope that you're already subscribed. If you haven't, go ahead and do it. If you share about the show, tag us on socials. We'd love to hear from you. Thank you so much. Take good care of yourselves and be well.